I'm delighted to introduce Mary and Oscar to present the vision.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me now? And good morning, everybody. After Richard's talk, I now know my cortisol levels are pretty high in terms of stress and peer anxiety and all that. In that, I am presenting what you have in front of you there, and it was very much a collective effort. So, you know, there are many ways to present this, so I hope I do justice to the collective work that we've done. And basically what I'm trying to present is what we gathered up as an attempt to articulate our vision, our collective vision, for what could be a more inclusive, equal and sustainable Ireland. And in terms of where we came into the process of doing that, I suppose Richard has given us today the confidence to talk much more conclusively that we had problems with the Irish growth model, the Irish model of development. We knew that there were limits to growth. We knew that we hadn't gotten the social benefits from growth that possibly were there to be derived from it. But we knew anyway that such a high growth model was ecologically unsustainable and probably spiritually unsustainable at the end of the day. So we were already on that journey when we got Richard's book and found that, as we did think intuitively, equality does work better for everyone. So in that space, what we tried to do was to think about what kind of society and social relations we would like to see in Ireland, and to think a little bit more then about what kind of economy we needed to sustain it. So instead of thinking of how to maximise economic growth and let it trickle down, we started with the opposite end of the spectrum: what kind of society we want to live in and what kind of economy do we need to help us get that society. And as Siobhan said earlier, the two pieces of work that informed the thinking to date were some work in 2007 that myself and Patrick Kirby did on models of development, and then work that Brian Harvey did, No Strings Attached, which looked at the relationships between the state and society. And right from the very start, I think we were acutely aware that the model of democracy you have is very related to the model of development that you have. So the types of politics that you have generates the kind of economic and social model that you have, and we knew those things went together. So when we came together recently in the last 6 months to look at what our common purpose was and to see could we articulate a set of values, we became known as Isféidir Linn. And what I'm presenting to you now arose from, I think, a feeling that what everybody wanted was to get out of sectoral boxes or single campaign issues or micro policy agendas, and to look up again and try and see a bigger picture. It was before the recession that this thinking started, this need to say we've been boxed in by the state to some degree into very state-controlled policy spaces, and we're no longer thinking independently and freely about why we started off in this whole arena of social change. A lot of us felt that we wanted to sit down again and think about what we actually wanted in the longer term, rather than short-term work that we were doing individually or collectively as organisations. So we wanted a collective analysis that could help us make sense of our local work or our thematic work or our policy work. We didn't want it to be a final product though, and as I'm giving it to you here today, I want to be really clear about this. What we're presenting here today is just where we're at the moment. It's not a finished product. We're expecting plenty of flaws, plenty of feedback, plenty of what, if, but you didn't. And that's fine. We can see some of those flaws already ourselves. But what we really felt it was useful to do was, we thought we'd gotten our work to such a stage that it was useful to throw it out to a much wider grouping of people to get feedback and to see, might it be some sort of tool for us to collectively develop some political dialogue about a different model of development that Ireland could have and what role we could play collectively in arguing for it. So it is only an evolving tool. I want to be really clear about that. And the other thing that we found was that we weren't alone. When we started trying to do this, we noticed, of course, that lots of other Irish groups have tried to do this recently, not so recently. ICTU have tried it, CORE have tried it, People Before Profit. There are loads and loads of movements around who are looking at the same kind of question and trying to imagine constructively a different way of doing social and economic modelling in Ireland. So we're not alone, and we don't pretend that we have any collective right to this space. We're just throwing it into the pot along with other processes that have happened before and after us to hope we can work it up together to something else. We also found quite usefully that in other countries, like in England, in Scotland, in Australia, we found very similar kinds of processes going on with groups getting together in the context of the crisis of capitalism to try and articulate a new vision, a new type of ism that could replace the present defunct model. And we also found internationally that at a European level that there were groups of non-government organisations coming together in what was called a Spring Alliance. And they were trying to also articulate a European vision, a new model for Europe. So it's an interesting time, and that's part of the context for what we're putting up here. And I suppose some of what informed our thinking, our analysis, was that idea, the very old idea, it's bandied about a lot, as crisis as an opportunity for change. So we used a model that sort of thought about change happens at a time of crisis by virtue of a battle of ideas. And what we wanted to try and do was take our place in that battle of ideas by arguing for some sort of coherent alternative to some of the more mainstream ideas that were out there. So if change at a time of crisis is determined by the narrative of change, whoever wins the battle of ideas will determine the next model for Ireland, the post-recession model that Ireland was. And I suppose we were very conscious that at the moment we're still very much locked into that high growth, low tax, foreign direct dependence, the investment dependence. So we're not seeing a lot of evidence that there is any real change in thinking about the model of development. And that angers us and frustrates us and worries us. So what we're trying to do is enter into that battle of ideas so that we can create a new narrative about development choices in Ireland. And I'm just quoting from Richard's book here, and in the last chapter, they say that if you want a more equal society, it involves people speaking their minds, making the case, organising and campaigning. So that's what we're trying to do really, is take our place in the political dialogue about what's possible. So the kind of values that we came up with, and these are on the back of the sheet, you know, the vision document that you have, we were very, very clear that what we wanted was a balanced model of development. As the groups who were doing this were working on mainly equality and anti-poverty issues, but we were very clear we had to step outside our own comfort zone and start talking about environmental issues, economic issues, models of democracy. So we're very clear that all these things need to be in the pot when we're talking about a model of development. So the economic, the social and the environmental need to be brought together in a much more coherent way if they're to be sustainable. So we were talking about a productive economy that focuses on full employment, a cohesive society that's caring, that's inclusive of everybody, and an environment that we care for and that we manage. The other kind of values were about equality. And obviously Richard's work reaffirms that focus on status and on the need for people to be valued equally as human beings. And that's for all groups in society, and for not just to be valued, but to realise the value through tangible access to resources, participation, influence. You won't get either of the above unless you have a different style of democracy, one that enables much more effective representative democracy, but also that enables much more participation in that democracy. So a value would be that we would govern our society or economy in a way that all groups, all people have access to decisions about what affects them. And the other value that we were very clear of is global solidarity, our interdependence globally, both from a humane point of view, but also from an ecological point of view, and that we needed to have a model of development that didn't contribute to a widening inequality at a global level, which our present model is doing. So bringing all that together in terms of a balanced model of development, we developed 5 areas or themes through which we explored in greater detail how the different components of a model of development needed to be brought together. So at the centre you have balance, you have sustainability, you have coherence. And each of the 5 themes, obviously we needed a sustainable, productive economy, an efficient economy, an economy that can get work done in. But we needed to redistribute the results of that economy much more effectively than we have done to date. So we needed redistributive justice as part of the centre of our model of development. That doesn't happen by redistributing income alone. It also happens by high quality public services. And we were very clear that that had to be a core component of the model. But so too equal status. The realisation that inequality isn't just about income inequality, it is also about the value that we give to each other as human beings, the social relations we have, the respect. So equal status had to be there alongside redistributive justice. And then democracy and participation, because as I said, if you don't have a democratic system that can generate good decisions that are inclusive of everybody, it was highly unlikely that we could generate any of the other aspects of the model.